Ladies and gents, welcome to Rex, and this is history's best question mark couples. Yeah, I guess so, not best. Valentine's Day special by the channel of Sarcastic production. Celebrate Valentine's Day with a look at some of the best couples in history. Well, best is a stretch, definitely most entertaining. But the pairing on display today are far from healthy. Enjoy the so decent into the insanity that is me discussing these stories. Yeah, I guess it's going to be entertaining one at least. So this is not about the best couples. Obviously, this is going to be about I guess chaotic couples. I guess. Yeah, but it's going to be fun. I looked at quite a few Sarcastic production videos already. If you haven't seen them, check out the cards as a playlist decorator for it. Check out the playlist too, like CGP Grey, Internet Historian, Tier Zoo, History. Yeah, let's do this one.
History has a very weird way of playing out. In the 3rd century AD, a Christian saint named Valentinus was martyred for helping Romans escape religious persecution, and nowadays we choose to mark the occasion by buying flowers and procuring fancy dinner reservations by right of conquest. There's just something so romantic about dropkicking a party of 2 along your quest for a candlelit feast. But even before our modern era of professing love through culinary bloodsport, couples throughout history have had interesting and varied ways of showing affection, which is my polite way of saying unhealthy at best and deeply self-destructive at worst. My friends, we are in for a ride today. Now let's do some history. So as we know well, or in some cases just discovered in the past decade, love comes in many forms and always has. And we know this for a fact because people specifically wrote about it. Sing muse of the thirst of Peleus' son Achilles. And as soon as Greek culture invented first-person poetry, it also invented gay first-person poetry. Now this was going to be the part where I begin discussing the lyric poet Sappho of Lesbos, but as I did my research, I realized she's actually way too interesting for me to just breeze through in this hijinks roundup. So your girl is getting promoted to a future History Makers video, and I'll just skip ahead to the next item on my list, which is dunking on Caesar. We usually think of Caesar as the guy who conquered Gaul, crossed the Rubicon, became dictator for life, and then very swiftly died, but his personal life was arguably just as bonkers as his political career. I like to joke about the sharp lines of old Cheekbones McGee, but Caesar's friends and enemies alike had to concede that the man was handsome, and his looks were most definitely not going to waste because Julius was a prolific flirt and he used that as fuel for his politics. In Rome, being a man of great manliness could be demonstrated by doing the sex, and that in turn reflected well on their political abilities. It's you know what? No, I don't think I'll elaborate on that. So in addition to his 3 successive wives Cornelia, who died in 69.
Yeah. I never thought of that, but yeah, Julius Caesar was there, wasn't it? Obviously, he used, sex for lots of political thing too. But yeah, I guess he did used to just bang left and right. Huh.
9 BC, nice, Pompeia, whom he divorced after a political scandal, and Calpurnia, who outlived him, Caesar slept with every well-to-do woman he could, including and not limited to the wives of Pompey Magnus and Marcus Crassus, who were his political partners in the First Triumvirate. In Rome, extramarital affairs weren't particularly rare or even seen as wrong, but what sets Caesar apart is his thoroughness. For one brutally illustrative example, when the Senate was debating in the wake of the thwarted Catiline conspiracy in 63 BC, Caesar received a letter while in the middle of a speech. Cato the Younger suspected the note was some evidence of Caesar's involvement in the plot and demanded that it be read out loud. Caesar, to his credit, really tried to get Cato to back down, but Cato insisted, so Caesar began reading an astonishingly inappropriate and uncomfortably descriptive love letter from Cato's own half-sister. Servilla's lustful missive may well have been mortifying for Cato to read in a vacuum, but imagine the poor man's misery to hear the entire Senate just laughing at him about it. Suffice to say, he never lived it down, and neither did the young Marcus Brutus because Servilla was also his mother. Caesar, however, was not immune from
What? Can there be, more chatty and badassy story of Caesar than that, I guess, in a way? Cato the Younger of all people, just like, read it out loud, and he reads and it's actually from, Cato's half-sister, a love letter to Caesar. And the same half-sister is mother of Brutus. I guess this fueled the stabby part, I guess, in the future. So apparently Caesar was a slut. Huh, would have thought that.
Ridicule, because the young Julius once served as ambassador to the Bithynian king Nicomedes IV, and as soon as he returns to Rome, the rumor mill spun into action. The mockery he endured for getting frisky with a foreign king was so intense that Caesar's own legions sang saucy tunes about it decades after the fact. And this actually brings up an interesting angle of Roman sexuality, because in Rome as in Greece, the line between what we call straight and gay was thin to non-existent. So if casual bisexuality was the norm, why all the jokes at Caesar's expense? Well, the thing with Rome is that everything has a power dynamic, so it was fine to be gay, but only if you were the top. Which seems extremely arbitrary, but knowing the Romans, that still somehow makes complete sense. So although Caesar was better known for his womanizing, the
Okay, damn. So I guess, in Roman times, everything was, related to how society sees whose worth is what, I guess. So if you're in power, you can do certain things. I don't know. It's just weird. Romans time, something was just way weirder. So Caesar was apparently a slut. For all the time I thought about Caesar, that is not the one point I thought. I kind of knew that, because all the stories popped up here and there about Caesar, seducing this and that. I never thought of him as a slut, but now that's the picture is in my head, and I don't think it's going away.
episode on the receiving end of Nicomedes earned Caesar the nickname Every Woman's Man and Every Man's Woman.
Damn.
And that's the love life of Julius Caesar, who banged his way through Rome, Gaul, Anatolia, North Africa, and Egypt. Heck, I haven't even mentioned Cleopatra, but I'm out of time! Suffice to say, the only thing Caesar couldn't smash was Parthia. Am I right, lads? Oh, that was dumb. But not untrue. Anyway. If Caesar was an example of how to build a political career on pure thirst, this story from medieval China shows how lust can be the undoing of not just one ruler, but an entire empire. This tale is immortalized in Bai Zhi Yi's poem, The Song of Everlasting Sorrow, so you know right off the bat this one's gonna go great. But let's start with the history and hop into the Tang Dynasty during the reign of Emperor Xuanzong. During the early part of his reign, the emperor is rightly credited with improving foreign trade relations along the Silk Road and at sea, reforming the military to become a professional force instead of a conscript army, and generously subsidizing literature and artistry. But apparently, working one's butt off for a decade and a half to lift China into a golden age of prosperity and culture can get a bit tiring. So starting in 734, the emperor began delegating more responsibilities to his wife, the empress. She appointed Li Linfu as chancellor, and when she died 3 years later, Li found himself as the acting head of state. So, what do you do when you need to keep an emperor entertained for basically the rest of his life? You import a palace full of women. But of those 3,000-odd concubines, the emperor only had eyes for one person, his son's wife. That's a yikes. Nevertheless, in 741, this Yang Yuhuan was branch transferred from wife of the prince to imperial consort, and the emperor doted on her incessantly, granting.
So his son just said, I'm fine with it. Is that it? How did that go? First, I thought the Li Linfu guy that, his wife basically put in charge and then died. I guess he's going to create some kind of a power vacuum or something. But then he talked about how he wanted his son's wife, and then he made imperial consort. So I'm like, maybe his son will, I guess, object or something, but I don't know.
What began as small requests but steadily ballooned into appointing her entire extended family to high positions in government and the military. While the young family slid comfortably into profitable posts they proceeded to completely neglect, Li Linfu was busy appointing foreign loyalists to beef up his power base. For you political corruption stands in the audience, the former is nepotism while the latter would be cronyism, but both of them
So appointing family of an unqualified into high-ranking office to maintain long-term influence. Yeah, that's nepotism. That's what Napoleon liked to do. Linfu, appointing friends into offices to ensure the direct loyalty or subject to the boss. This is more sinister. This leads to more profit than this one, I guess. Nepotism implies that just putting your family into some kind of a power will basically means that nobody's going to backstab you, but that doesn't always work. By cronyism, if you want to grab certain power, like become an emperor or king, this works a lot.
them are still very bad. And even worse was the development that these two camps did not like each other. This came crashing down in 755 when the foreign-born general An Lushan escalated a local spat with the Yang family into a full rebellion against the emperor. And you thought this was a love story. Ha! You fool! The real sorrow here is the decline of good.
So emperor made a Yang family into the really important positions. And then Yang family and this, basically whoever that name was, wait a minute, what is the name? An Lushan. They got into some kind of argument, and Lushan launched some kind of a rebellion against the emperor. So emperor must be thinking, I made this family into this power, and that family screwed me over with this shit.
Story. Ha! You fool! The real sorrow here is the decline of good governance. An Lushan's rebellion didn't quite work out how he wanted, as he died just 2 years in, but it would ravage China for another several years, and this is where our lovers enter into the picture again. The emperor and Lady Yang were forced to flee the palace by the rebelling army, and the Tang soldiers complained that this was all Lady Yang's fault, which...
yeah.
And they forced her to kill herself. Technically, the emperor was consulted beforehand, but clearly in a, hey, just so you know, we are doing this kind of way, as opposed to asking permission. So Lady Yang died, and the emperor...
Of course they did. Like, man, you made them, you gave them really important roles, and they fucked us, fucked the entire country. So we're just letting you know that she's dying.
Was heartbroken, so he abdicated to his son, who spent the rest of his reign fighting the rebellion. This marks the second worst thing Xuanzong ever did to his son, aside from, the inciting incident. As I mentioned at the start, this story...
So let me get this. He's like, your wife, yeah, I like her, I'm gonna take her, alright? Then after some time, yeah, I think the country's fucked. You deal with that shit, you deal with the rebellion.
Is most famously recounted in poetry, but weirdly, it's set all the way back in the Han Dynasty. In that version of the story, the systemic corruption is glossed over, and Lady Yang dies to motivate the emperor to focus on winning his battle. And after the victory, everyone is just sad for 100 lines, without stopping to note that the couple brought this all on themselves.
Yeah.
It would seem the poet was uninterested in the long-term consequences of severe government neglect, which is precisely why I don't write love stories. Okay, now that we've witnessed a debacle, let's take a look at a tragedy. We all know that arranged political marriages were rarely fun for anyone involved, but nothing tops the marriage of King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette. The first two tales in this video were not what I would consider fun, but this story is just awful everything. So after the 7 Years' War shuffled the diplomatic...
Yeah, this is one of the famous incidents, I guess, because I heard of this here and there. I don't know the details about the story, but yeah. Marie Antoinette and, Louis, I heard of this.
Map of Europe, France and Austria found themselves needing to forge an alliance, so the sitting royals arranged for Princess Marie to marry into the French monarchy via Dauphin Louis. The pairing was an immediate disaster, as a firework display on their wedding night blew over from stiff wind and caused the crowd, whom the rockets were now firing into, to panic and stampede, killing anywhere from a couple hundred to a few thousand people. The couple went out of their way to financially compensate families affected by the tragedy, but man, that is a rough start, and it did
What were the fireworks made of, man, if it caused that kind of panic?
not get better. Thing is, neither Louis nor Marie wanted anything to do with this situation. When he was born, his grandfather, Louis XV, was still king, and his older brother was in line for the throne. By 1774, his brother, father, and grandfather died, leaving this poor 20-year-old as King Louis XVI, when the shy, indecisive homebody would have been much happier just reading and locksmithing. Marie, by contrast, was social, showy, and expensive, having a taste for fine clothes, sprawling gardens, and chocolate. She started every day with a cup of hot chocolate and whipped cream, which is a powerful morning routine. Well, morning is a stretch, because she woke up around noon after spending every night on the town. So there was a pretty clear disconnect between the pair, and the conspicuous lack of a child fueled 7 years of gossip since their marriage in 1770, on top of the garden variety complaints that anything and everything was her fault because she was an icky gross foreigner who went to parties. And of course, rumors of Marie's infidelity circulated from the start, but come on, who did they think she was? Caesar? Roasted. Now, the lack of an heir could have been for a lot of reasons, and remains the subject of far too much speculation. Contemporary accusations that Louis suffered from pee too small were a result of the perceived connection between weak political performance and insufficient manliness. But if the uncomfortably thorough court records on the subject are anything to go by, Louis was more likely afflicted with, ouch, pee-pee too big.
What?
Yep. This was not made better by the fact that the king and queen slept in separate rooms connected by a very public corridor that passed right in front.
Okay, so let me get this straight. The biggest issue here was that his PP was too big, and that was major issues. So that was something that was causing all this problem, where people are speculating that his PP is smaller. Yeah, I don't think this would be a problem in today's world, I guess. But at that time, sure, this was an issue apparently.
Of the royal court, who would have known exactly what Louis was up to at that hour of the evening. 7 years into this nightmare, the Queen of Austria sent Marie's brother to give Louis the pep talk and/or surgery he needed to begin having children with Marie. Cool. Awesome. Just fantastic. I hate everything about this. Why can't you just let this poor library ace live his life? Sickos. Anyway, as if the situation couldn't get worse, then the French Revolution happened. Faced with colossal state debt and factionalism in the court, Louis was beset by interlocking problems that even a much more capable monarch would crumble under. One thing leads to another, I am not getting into it, and soon Louis was public enemy number 1. 2. People still hated Marie Antoinette more. And for what it's worth, the let them eat cake business was a misattribution from one of 2 earlier sources. In 1792, the royals attempted to sneak out to Austria and lead an army in to reinstate the authority of the monarchy, but it failed, allegedly because Marie's perfume was so strong it gave them away. The monarchs were tried for treason, which, to be fair...
So let me get this. They were escaping, but she still, I guess, dress up, did her makeup, and put lots of perfume because we have to look and feel good, smell good if you're going to escape. Yeah, that's the important part.
Yeah, that is kind of treason. And they both met their ends at the guillotine the next year. These two definitely were not saints, but man, did history do them dirty.
Yeah.
What a mess.
Yeah, the guillotine thing, that's just... I mean, people after the revolution just thought, look at that, we have power, we can actually kill important people. Fuck it, let's let it roll, I guess. And just one after another, people just died. And then Napoleon's like, enough with this shit, I'm gonna take over.
Though we've been talking about the joyful subject of love, I would still like the record to show that I distinctly did not have fun today, so I'm firmly marking these tales as blurst. But that aside, what can we learn from all this? Well, that's tough, but let me try to spin this. First, don't have affairs. You never know when your mistress's son might just stab you. Second, maintain a healthy work-life balance, and while you're at...
Yeah, the first one is so true, right? I mean... obviously it's the kid or the younger, he's the one who's like, you know what, read the letter. And he's like, yeah, I don't think you want me to do that. He's like, just read it. And he just read it there. Caesar just, basically all this Chad looking just, proud, reading the letter of, Cato's sister, love letter to him. That must have been a scene, right? Everybody laughing and him reading like that. But Julius Caesar was already Caesar, and, all this thing, every woman just basically throwing at him like that. And obviously Caesar was a slut. That's the image now is in my head. But that's just after Brutus, his mother, and Brutus probably remembered that when he did all that shit.
At it, maybe don't steal your child's spouse. And
hide your kid's wife. What does that have to do with? I mean, no, it's, I guess, don't do nepotism, I guess. That would be the thing here, because... he basically put her and her family in important position. They basically, I guess, insulted somebody they shouldn't have and caused all this revolution and shit, whatever that happened. People revolted, they had to run away and all that shit.
Third, recognize when a pairing is just not good for anyone.
Sometimes you gotta just try running away to Austria. Now, when you have to run, don't put makeup and perfume on, I guess. And apparently having a big dick is an issue, so there you go.
Truly, every detail I learned while researching this video made me wish I had never started, and I'm frankly shocked that our disaster species was ever allowed to make it this far. Thank you for watching. Researching this video forced me to actually Google search the phrase Louis XVI penis, and no amount of therapy can make that unhappen.
Well, that was history's chaotic couples, I guess. That's more like it. History's chaotic couples Valentine Day special. This is history hijinks series, right? He has to, improve his title thing here. He should have, just wrote history hijinks, history's chaotic couples or something like that. That would have been better title. Alright, people, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like, subscribe, check out the reaction I did. This link in the description. Check out the cards for the different playlists, check out the end cards, and I'll see you next time.